Today in the Duffel Blog Newswire. 77 years after D-Day, a 97-year-old veteran has finally been awarded his letter of reprimand. William Wild Bill Kelso, who as a corporal in the United States Army helped storm the beaches of Normandy during World War II, suspected that something big was planned for his 97th birthday. But he never guessed that his greatest surprise since the war, his former platoon commander, accompanied by 2 active-duty military police, presenting him with a letter of reprimand. Quote, "It took forever, but I finally got him," said 98-year-old former First Lieutenant Loomis Burkhead. He thought what he did was long forgotten. Well, by heaven, the Army may be slow, but it doesn't forget what counts, discipline. End quote.
China. Spy balloon was 1 week from retirement. Since the first sighting of a Chinese spy balloon by Montana residents on Saturday, January 28, coverage focused entirely on what the balloon was and where it was going, until a statement released today by Chinese authorities seeks to tell the world who the balloon was, revealing it to have been a family aeronautical device 1 week from retirement. Quote, "The story of the Chinese spy balloon is one of unchecked American aggression. That balloon had a heart of gold. The hegemonistic pigs murdered it on live TV." End quote.
Hundreds dead after Air Force dining facility runs out of truffles and Wagyu beef. From Joint Base San Antonio, Texas, hundreds of airmen starved to death after the base dining facilities ran out of gourmet foodstuffs, including truffles and Wagyu beef, sources confirmed today. Quote, "Last month we had to close down the sushi bar, and now this," Lieutenant General Marshall B. Webb said during a press conference. "The good news is there are a few hundred less mouths to feed, so we'll be able to stretch out the remaining beluga caviar and bluefin tuna for a few more days."
Waffle House employees to teach Army combatives. The U.S. Army said today it would replace traditional combatives training with a new hand-to-hand combat program designed by Waffle House employees. According to sources, top brass at the Pentagon have been impressed by the quick thinking and formidable fighting skills displayed by Waffle House staff during late-night brawls with inebriated patrons. Quote, "These individuals have proven themselves to be experts in the field of close-quarters combat, and we believe they have much to offer our troops." End quote.
Director of Naval Intelligence asking if anyone else has heard about this Ukraine thing. Quote, "The DNI came in asking if I'd heard of anything out of the ordinary going on in Ukraine," said Captain Jim Porter. "Obviously, I hadn't. I checked the news and wow, these kinds of things come out of nowhere, can't they?" End quote. The Office of Naval Intelligence, responsible for analyzing maritime intelligence and consuming 35% of the world's...
If you haven't guessed already, these are all satirical news reports, all from the site known as the Duffel Blog. Launched in 2012 by Marine veteran Paul Szoldra, the Duffel Blog has satirized every aspect of the military, from the Pentagon to generals to veterans and civilians. Read by thousands, including former secretaries of defense, the blog has a cult following and, as we learned today, is designed to not only entertain, but also challenge and encourage the military to think about itself and its policies. I'm Carrie Varo-Heikes, and we chat with the Duffel Blog's founder, Paul Szoldra, on today's episode of Army Matters.
Hey, Dan, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Yep.
Ready? Break. On you, brother.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergeant of the Army retired Dan Daly, and you're listening to Army Matters. Before I introduce our incredibly famous guest for the day, I got to also introduce my good battle buddy and my co-host, Les.
Hey, Dan. Good to see you on the net today. I'm Lieutenant General Retired Leslie Smith, the 66th Inspector General in the Army. So we have a great person coming on the net with us today.
We have Paul Szoldra. Now, I know everybody heard me just say incredibly famous, and you probably won't know his name, but when I tell you what he does, you're going to know as soon as I say it.
Uh-oh.
He's the creator of the Duffel Blog.
The Duffel Blog?
Now, come on, General. Even you knew what the Duffel Blog was.
Yeah.
When you were in the Pentagon.
I did.
Did you gather on there every once in a while on your Army computer?
I did periodically to look at some of
Yeah.
how they looked at some of the investigations that we had going on. And I'm not going to say what they said, but it was rather interesting, their viewpoints.
Yeah.
So this is good.
Well, this is going to be a great show. And
But
yeah.
before we jump into it, somebody just handed me something. Is it okay if I read it?
Yeah, you can read it. Sure.
It's dated February 14th, Valentine's Day in 2015. And it has a simple but effective title. The hottest sergeant major of the Army rank. And do you know who number one is? Dan Daly.
That's part of the Duffel blog.
And I looked at
Yeah.
this picture. How old were you when they took this picture?
Well, that picture's last week.
No. See, I got him turning red. You guys can't see this, but he's turning red right now. But let me read it real quick. When they gave this, I can believe it. It says, Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel Daly, took the office January 31st, becoming the youngest, hottest Sergeant Major of the Army since the position was created in 1966. What? Every chain of command display across the Army is getting a little more delicious. As Secretary of the Army, John McHugh Surfer Boy, Tan gets some company with competition from Dreamboat Daily. Is that what they used to call you? Dreamboat Daily?
All right. You know what? I'm going to have to.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Let me retort. Allow me to retort.
Let me just finish. Let me finish and I'll let you talk about it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Serling SMA for Facebook age. Those baby blues are sure to get a few likes. He's an easy choice for number one. And that's why we like SMA Daily, because he's those baby blue eyes. But I didn't know it. I mean, but somebody really, they just gave it to me. They just slid it under my table and I was like, wow, okay, go ahead. What you got to say to that?
Was that sarcasm or jealousy? I
No,
don't know
that's
which
not.
one that was.
Both.
Yeah, I think it was
Both, because I don't have baby blue eyes. Mine are brown.
Both. Oh, both.
And,
okay. Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty funny. And it was.
I got a funny one here too. And I'll tell you what, everybody listening has got to have their favorite.
Okay,
Duffel blog
what is
post,
yours?
But here's mine. Army Times, military working dogs are smarter than junior officers.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, wait. How about 3 eggs found, 18 lieutenants lost at base Easter
I
egg
believe,
hunt? That probably happens every Easter.
I probably was one of
Easter
those
we lose that
lieutenants
many
when I was
lieutenants.
back in the day.
Yeah.
That's
right. Well, we can have fun with this all day, but I'll tell you what. You know what's going to be more fun?
Okay, let's get into it.
Paul, welcome to the Army Matters show. And let's go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us how you got started in the Duffel blog.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's a real honor to be here with both of you, especially Dreamboat Daily. I finally get to meet him in the flesh.
Paul, I'm going to have to get your address too, because I owe you a Christmas present.
And it might be ticking.
How Duffel Blog got the start? It started 10 years ago, and over 10 years ago now. And it really started without any kind of big plan or kind of vision for the future. When I first started, I just figured I was gonna write some funny stuff about the military.
Yeah,
kind of share our side of military humor with the wider public, and kind of entertain fellow veterans, fellow service members like myself. And really how it started was I was in college in 2012. I got out of the Marine Corps.
Thank you for your service, Paul. Yeah, Paul's a Marine.
Thank you. I only did 8 years, so it's like it doesn't even count. It's just like,
Yes, it does.
That's right.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. I like the Marines because whenever we're making fun of the Navy or the Air Force, the Marines always join in. That's why I like the
Well,
Marines.
they're the
That's true. Yeah.
the ground force for the Navy. I was going to say something else, but we got to be.
That's right.
Nowadays we have writers from every branch of the U.S. military, except for the Space Force. Those people are just way too new, and their uniforms are kind of ridiculous. So, like, we're still working on that. But we have military service members from every branch, and the thing I've learned is it's like one team, one fight.
Yeah.
I used to be. I was very much I was a Marine infantryman. I very much subscribe to, infantry is the greatest thing ever. And we're better than all of you. And
we are
kind of like making fun of the pogues and things like that. I mean, that's kind of like, the thing that I've learned kind of learning from all these other service members that write for Duffel Blog. We have all shapes and sizes, men, women, different jobs, like services, and it's all valuable. It's all needed. Being a Marine grunt, you have this tiny little window into your universe, and it's very small, and no one tells you anything, and you have no idea why you're doing something a lot of times. And to get that experience from everybody else, it's really been really helpful. And that's what a lot of the other writers at Duffel Blog, they say that same thing. They learn a lot more about the rest of the military. Maybe we need some Duffel Blog, cohesion in there or something. I don't know. But
so as you mentioned, you're not the only one writing. It works as like a co-op, and how do you develop the stories, and do you guys collectively come up with an idea? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So the process has changed over time, of course. But basically, the first story was me making a Chair Force joke. Air Force Colonel is tired of Chair Force nickname and bans chairs. And this was about a colonel. Yeah. He bans chairs and he makes all of the airmen at MacDill Air Force Base start using standing desks. A month later, I started writing, and then, did maybe one or two a week. And about a month later, I got this email from a soldier in Kuwait. He was like, "Look, I love Duffel Blog. I think this is hilarious. Can I write for you?" And I figured, okay, sure. Didn't plan on this. Didn't think that this was ever going to happen, but opened it up. It has kind of molded into a online version of the way The Onion kind of does things. A long time ago, I remember listening to a radio show about The Onion and their writing process. It was called Inside the Tough Room. And they talked about how they pitched every Monday. They came into a room, the writers came together, and they basically had to bring in 5 headlines, just headlines. Really good headlines. And they had to pitch completely blind, or everybody else just sits there, listens to them. And then if you get a laugh, 2 laughs, 3 laughs, or, thumbs up in the room, it's a good idea. You can write that. If you don't get any of that, you throw that out. That's why they call it the tough room, where people are withholding laughter. They're just not gonna do it. It's very much this has to be really good and really smart.
Where do you pick the people from? How do you get in the tough room?
It's a process, people apply. So basically now the requirements are 15 headlines and a writing sample. That's actually a pretty good way to get an understanding of does this person have the ability to write for us? Can they write in the style of news writing? But also, do they have creative ideas for mocking the military and challenging the DoD and things like that? So we have a private Facebook group where you can come in and basically pitch your headline. No explanation, no added, description, nothing. It's if the headline can stand on its own and you're getting a few likes, comments, other writers are chiming in and say, hey, that's a really good idea, then people write it. A lot of times people might have maybe some sort of inkling of an idea that they start off with, and then the comments kind of go below that. And you're talking about 60, 70 different people from various backgrounds. And they're coming in with all kinds of different random kind of ideas. I mean, just in the news, we have this Chinese spy balloon thing. And so
I was just going to read it, Paul. If you go to the Duffel Blog right now, and their opening headliner is multiple F-35 shot down in 3-hour dogfight with Chinese balloon.
That's number 1 on the site, right?
That's number 1 on the page. Yeah. And I am in awe, not only of the creativity of the article, but the diversity of the satire that you come up with on a regular basis.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. So talk to us about your military expertise. Why did you decide to join the Marine Corps? We could argue that, but I'll leave that alone. Why the Marines?
On September 11th, I walked into my history class. My history teacher, I'll never forget it. He was sitting on his desk, and he was watching the attack.
Mm-hmm.
I just like walked in and there he is. He's staring at the screen. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And we watched the history unfold in history class.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about military service. Didn't really take it all that seriously though, up to that point. I was very much like technical, like kind of a software nerdy kid growing up. And so I was thinking like, oh, I want to go in the Air Force. Anyway, I ended up going down to the recruiting office and the recruiters are all in the same building. And I went to go see the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
This is not made up. I seriously walked in. Air Force recruiter was not there. I'm like standing out in the hallway, awkward and weird. And Marine recruiter calls from like in his office and he's like, hey, what's going on? What are you looking for? Oh, I'm here to see the Air Force. He's like, yeah, they're not here right now. Come on in here, get in here. And he's just like, I'm like, okay. And I just walked in and he's like, hey, take a seat. And I sat down and I start talking to this staff sergeant, but he was the person who got me interested in the Marine Corps initially. My experience growing up and like learning about stories is of the Army infantry.
Yeah.
My dad was in the Army, but he had a really close friend. His name is Jesse Williams, actually, is a command sergeant major. He's a hero in the Vietnam War. He would come and visit my old man every once in a while. And he told me about stories of him in Vietnam and
mm-hmm.
just the valor of him and his men. And that has had a really big positive impact on me.
Yeah.
Did he even know that? I have no idea. It's just by sort of happenstance that I end up going, I learn all like these Army stories and then I end up in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it's good. It still counts. So, in your bio, it talks about you wrote to your friend, there's not much going on here.
Yeah.
And then there was a improvised explosive device strike in the area that you were. Can you describe that to our listeners and how it affected you?
Sure. I was deployed to Afghanistan in November 2004.
Yeah.
It was mostly, to be honest, it was mostly a very boring and uneventful deployment. We ended up patrolling like every single day, just driving around. It was this time of presence patrols.
Yeah.
Our battalion commander was like, just go out, just be there. We just drove around a lot and tried to get shot at. That was basically our mission, and we failed repeatedly. Like, we just never could get the Taliban to fire at us for whatever reason. But 2005, we were on this patrol, like this mission to go basically escorting our battalion XO. He was going to like tour the different bases, just kind of check things out. We were coming from Jalalabad. We were going over to the Korengal Valley. So anyway, we're going up this one dirt road. I'm in the back of this high back Humvee, and it's me and a couple of other guys and two of our interpreters. And we're on this boring drive down a road, and we're like chatting, and out of nowhere, the truck in front of me like just blows up. I'm looking sideways, and then suddenly it's like I look to my left and there's the truck just blowing up, and you're like, what? Did that just happen? Like, that's real life?
Yeah.
I'm actually in a combat zone. The hood flew off. It ended up like landing right where we were, and my driver thankfully like hit reverse and got the hell out of there and backed up. Nobody was killed. It was bumps and bruises. Basically, they waited.
Mm-hmm.
They waited like 5-10 more seconds. They would have taken out the very unarmored high back Humvee that I was in. For the longest time, I just questioned why they didn't wait 5-10 seconds. Eventually got over that. Kind of a brief period of WTF.
Okay.
Then we pulled security, tried to like find the bomber. He was on the ISR radio laughing at us, and like it pissed us off really bad, but we never found him. It was just like just battling a ghost.
Yeah.
And then next day, went right back down that road. Only way out.
Yeah.
And nothing happened.
Join AUSA, the Army's premier professional association and host of the largest land power exposition in the United States. AUSA is open to everyone, including all ranks and components. So whether you have a relationship with the U.S. Army or simply want to honor those who serve, you can learn more at ausa.org/join.
So, Paul, again, many of our listeners have seen your site and seen your work, but they may not know that you've been mentioned by some very famous people, the late John McCain, General Retired Mattis, or Honorary Mattis, the former SecDef. When did you feel like Duffel Blog was starting to become a success?
Yeah. When I first started Duffel Blog, I was in college at the University of Tampa. And it was sort of somewhat, getting there. People were posting about it on Reddit, and people were sharing it a little bit on Facebook. It was growing very slowly. It's not an overnight success. And one of the things I was looking into was actually going Army ROTC, doing a master's program, and maybe going back in the Army as an officer. I was like, kind of like, maybe I go back in the military. I don't know. And right around this time, Army Times, Military Times, they had reached out and they wrote a whole article about Duffel Blog. And it wasn't just Army Times, it wasn't just one of the sites. It was every single site. They posted like Military Times and like Army, Navy, all of them.
Yeah.
I remember I had about like 8,000 fans on Facebook. And then the day after they posted up, it went to 20,000. Like it was crazy growth.
Wow.
All of a sudden, Duffel Blog was, known.
That's a huge jump from 8 to 20,000. What's the most notable fans of your site?
I think Secretary Mattis is probably the most well known. I one of the things that I loved seeing is when General Mattis was actually at he was at Stanford, and he put it in his bio at the end. Like it was this whole, General Mattis has done all these different things, all these various commands. And at the bottom, it says, he has been frequently satirized by duffelblog.com. And I just found it to be like quite amazing. And General Mattis, we created almost like a caricature of him that it played upon his myth that people believe. You can see this now in the internet land. Famously, there's this picture of General Mattis holding a grenade, and it's like Saint Mattis.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them out there.
He has this like mythical kind of status as the ultimate warrior general. He has earned this. I mean, he was, in Operation Iraqi Freedom, 1st Marine Division, Afghanistan, all this other stuff. Just a good example is like we made a story about how he was like he used like networking cable to choke out an insurgent in Fallujah, on his way to the Tactical Operations Center. He used like a high-tech phraselator that will help you with Arabic translation, but he also, knocked out a insurgent with it. So we just
run with it. You just run with it. Yeah.
And he's been really good about it too. It's like, he's always been of the mind of like, hey, it keeps us on our toes, and, it's all good fun. Like
we don't take ourselves too serious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You got to embrace that as a senior leader. So Paul, we run a podcast. Obviously you're on it now. We get lots of comments. What's the craziest fan mail you've ever received? Get any threats by leaders or anything like that?
Okay. So I can't say who, But I will tell you that we have made fun of general officers who did not enjoy being made fun of. And they've asked us to change or remove the article. And I will not do that.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll modify that. If you're a junior enlisted type, if you're very low on the totem pole, and we have taken an image of you from like the Divids website, and we use that in an article. We've gotten emails sometimes where people are like, this is giving me a hard time. You're kind of, it's like shining a light on me and my chain of command. And I'm like, all right, no worries. Like, I don't want to get you, in trouble or whatever. No problem. But then there's like things where...
You mean all I had to do was write in to get my picture off the Duffel blog? Is that how easy this is?
Well, not you. It doesn't apply. Yeah, you're. If it's like,
I'm a little offended. I wasn't one of your best fans.
I think it's
either,
like,
keep going.
I think it's like E7 and above is probably my cutoff. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, set the record straight. Did I ever write into you? You
did not. As far as I know, you enjoyed every time we've made fun of you.
So we gave some homework assignments, and we wanted to talk about some of those. So take this one. So the Army standardizes thinking outside the box procedures. How did you come up with that? It's brilliant.
Well, okay. So the thing is, one thing I have to say is like, I can't say I came up with it.
Okay.
Like this is a team exercise.
Okay.
It's a team effort, and I'm the editor. Thinking outside the box procedures. I mean, the Army standardizes that thing, doesn't that?
You're right.
That makes
a
lot of sense
brilliant.
if you think about it. Like that sounds like something the Army would potentially think of that. They're like, oh, wait a minute. I can envision a innovative officer in the Army that's like, all right, we got to think more outside the box. And then, somebody at the Pentagon is like, well, we can't do that yet. We got to standardize the procedures, make sure that we have this communicated all across the force. We don't want any willy-nilly outside the box thinking to ruin the honor of the Army. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just guessing. I don't have any insider knowledge, but
okay. Hey, really briefly, we'll just do one more. So you got to explain this one to me. So the Army commissions first CrossFit chaplain. And then the subparagraph says deadlifting his way to heaven. And the pictures for our listeners is a guy with two 45 or 50-pound kettlebells with a chaplain stole with a cross. This is wild. Talk to us about that one really briefly.
Well, I would say that is definitely satirizing the CrossFit worshipers.
Yeah.
Not aficionados, but the CrossFit worshipers in the military, of which there are many. Now,
yes.
I'm not saying there is a problem with CrossFit.
Right. Okay.
It's good. Fitness is good. You should definitely work out and improve yourself. But come on. I mean, I've run into like CrossFit fans and like, hi, nice to meet you. What's your Fran time? This is not conversation. What your time on a workout is. But
they're obsessed. They're obsessed with it. That's all they talk.
It's obsessive. Right? It's like, you get some other hobbies.
Before we close out, we all have our favorite stories on there. Les announced my favorite story. You wouldn't believe how much attention that drew on the Sergeant of the Army when you said I had those baby blue eyes. But Paul, what's your favorite story ever on the Duffel blog?
My favorite story ever, it's just a really goofy. It's from 2012. So it's definitely, it's near and dear to my heart, but it's like dozens wet after Coast Guard cutter capsizes off Florida coast. It's very goofy and like really like immature. And then they like, at the end of it, they have their after action report at the local bar where they discuss like the sinking. I don't know why, but I just love it. It's this very like dry humor that the writer had that I just tend to love. If I had one more to give you, it's definitely the Gitmo Guantanamo prisoners getting GI Bill benefits. And the reason why I picked this one is because this ended up making national headlines. And
I remember that.
It was amazing. Like a constituent of Senator Mitch McConnell ended up writing to him asking about it. McConnell's office wrote a letter to the Pentagon asking what's going on here. Why is this, a thing? That letter ended up getting into the press, and it became this whole thing about like, it's, it came from the Duffel blog, and we all got a good laugh. We were just amazed. Like, how could this possibly have happened?
Yeah. Now the FBI didn't go knocking on the door, did they? I mean, they didn't come.
Yeah, I was expecting that for the longest time. I was like, am I going to get in trouble for doing this stuff? Like making fun of the Department of Defense? Like, what's the rules here?
So on that subject, Paul, and there's the last one. Were you ever afraid to write something? Is there an area you said, man, we can't go there?
I think as long as you have a really good target of your satire, of like what you're focused on, and a good target of your criticism, then nothing's really outside of bounds. It's when you haven't picked the right target, that's when you get into trouble. We punch up, we don't punch down. We punch up at a general, not at a private. Things like that, like these are concepts that I think are really important, and it's something that I reinforce with the writers too. It's people, whoever we're mock and make fun of, they need to be deserving of the criticism, and then usually you can get away with it. That's let us get into really controversial issues and challenge some really controversial things when it comes to like mental health, things like that. There's a lot of things that you can say about that, and using humor to do that is a good way. I want people to be, at the end of reading a Duffel blog article, I want them to be either entertained. I want them to be laughing. And if they're not entertained or laughing, then I want them to be thinking deeper or challenged on something. Like sometimes we'll write an article that's not funny at all, but it's really, really cutting and really makes you think deeply. And those are valuable too. We try to be more on the entertaining side, but sometimes we'll do those here and there when and if we have that opportunity.
Outstanding. Well, Paul, I know we could talk to you all day. And I have one final question for you, Paul, before we sign off today is, now that you've met me, you see me firsthand, am I still the dreamiest SMA ever?
Let me answer that. Yes, you are SMA. You're lovely. We love you, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I was not the writer of the article in question.
Oh, my goodness.
But I got to say, I can't wait to share that I have met Dreamboat Daily in the flesh.
In the flesh.
And I can definitely share and relay that,
he's still number one.
You're definitely number one.
Yeah.
There's no other SMAs.
As you get older, your self-esteem starts to lower, and it's indicative of being aging, right? But that confidence boost you just gave me.
Dan, if it makes you feel any better, man, I'm going to come by and tell you that you're a good-looking guy every day.
I still got it.
Yeah, you still got it.
Yes.
Paul, thanks so much for coming out and sharing your story.
Thank you so much. It's been really great to talk to you.
Just one final thing before we go. We'd like to give a shout out to the General Creighton W. Abrams AUSA chapter, located in Wiesbaden, Germany. On December 22nd, they held a father-daughter gala in the ballroom of a beautiful local palace. Dads and daughters dressed up, had ballroom dancers walk them through dance steps, and then danced to music ranging from Taylor Swift to Strauss waltzes. It was a great event that cast a spotlight on the chapter for the local community. Congrats to everyone involved. If you or your chapter would like to be profiled on the show, please email us at podcast@ausa.org. Hua.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army. the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Daly, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Anthony Dale Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the supervising sound editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Barrow-Heckes and LaSharon Duncan. Special thanks to Lauren Hall and Terry Perriman for their help. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. I'm LaSharon Duncan. Hope you have a great Army day. Hooah!